organized and presented by Internet and Mobile Association of India and Niti Aayog. And also welcome to our most awaited session of the day. As we're all aware, the theme for this year's IDS was Atmanirbhar Bharat. And staying true to this theme, IDS has brought in thought leadership at various digital initiatives covering policies, business, investment, advertising, digital commerce, startups ecosystem, emerging tech, esports, among many other digital trends. With that, and without any further ado, let me now introduce to you our next session. Our next session is a very special fireside chat on the topic building a data-driven innovation ecosystem in India. And for the same, it is my privilege to welcome our esteemed guests, Mr. Sanjeev Bikhchandani, co-founder Infoedge. We welcome you, sir. Thank you, sir. Along with Mr. Ashish Kashyap, founder and CEO, indmoney.com. We welcome you, Mr. Kashyap. Thank you for joining us. I would now request Mr. Kashyap to please take over the session. Thank you.
Thank you, and hello everyone. Pleased to have an opportunity to interact with this platform. So Sanjeev, as you understand, the topic is all about the data-driven ecosystem, how it is driving the same, and how's data driving the revolution. You know, startups have truly begun to embrace data and machine learning for multiple use cases, be it for a recommendation, personalization, routing, forecasting, customer service, pricing, etc., etc. And what I hear is that they've started seeing clear benefits in embracing data in terms of conversion rate metrics, NPS, unit economics, and also creating great user experiences and finally competitive differentiation. Sanjeev, you're one of the very, very few people who I've known for many years and also is at the helm of multiple consumer tech categories, right from classified services to food tech to ed tech. We would love to, hear from you with examples of your portfolio companies that are leveraging data to create significant value for constituents. Sanjeev. Sanjeev, you're not audible. Sanjeev, you're on mute.
Sorry, I was muted. Sorry. Look, I think when companies start out at the very beginning, unless you've got a good data guy at the top table, somebody who's familiar with data, who understands how data is to be used, who has perhaps used data in the past in some other company, very young companies typically don't use data the way they can or should, because they're not aware of how to do it and they are not aware of the benefits, right? We ourselves, we launched Naukri in 97, but it wasn't until 2003 or 4, that we got onto this data thing, maybe 2001, maybe, or the earliest. So for our first thing was job search result ranking. So when you search for a job, how should the results be ranked, right? And we use a standard off-the-shelf, sort of written by somebody else, result rankings algorithm, right? And then we sort of figured, listen, Google is doing it differently. And there's a lot of intelligence behind how Google is ranking such results, and their entire success is based on the result ranking algorithm, right? And we also felt that, listen, you've got to maximize the quality of matches. It basically means you show a person not just the job that he is aspiring for, but temper that with the job that he's likely to get, right? Where the organization will want him as well. So in other words, it's a two-way match, right? Google is a one-way match. So in that sense, this is a slightly more complex problem than a one-way match. It is a two-way match. So you may want to apply for X job in Y company, but look, given your profile, it's perhaps not that likely that that company will shortlist you or call you for an interview, or at least not for that role, right? So it's a two-way match because you want to satisfy both sides of the equation. Now that's a non-trivial problem to solve. We made progress. We've made progress over the last maybe 15, 16, 17 years. But it's still not fully solved. We sort of make progress inch by inch, right? So related to this is the problem of applicant spam. So think about in a country like, if everybody's young, everybody's upwardly mobile, aspirationally, everyone's moving ahead in life, and it costs you nothing to apply for a job, right? It just costs you nothing, right? You just spend some time and some data access, and you can apply for a job. There's no money involved, right? So if a good company, a reputed company, a well-known company puts out a vacancy on any job site in India, right? The world and his uncle will apply, whether or not they fit the criteria that the company has put out. Now, this leads to, from a recruiter perspective, something called applicant spam, or rather something which we call applicant spam, right? Now, if you receive 500 resumes, of which 25 are relevant, that's not so good, because you've got to go through those emails, click on the attachments, apply your judgment, right? And this is, again, another big problem. We've been working on it the last 10, 12 years, and we've made substantial progress. But again, both of these require analytics, study of user clicks, user behavior, study of recruiter clicks, recruiter behavior, and so on and so forth. And taking feedback from both sides, right? But we're getting there. Right? And today, I would say we've invested substantial, resources in Naukri, in improving our ranking algorithm, including our search result ranking algorithm, and many other things to reduce applicant spam, to get better matches, right? And today I would say we are 3 or 4x better than competition in this area, and that's largely because we have invested a fairly large amount of resources in analytics, in algorithms, in machine learning, in AI, right? We began to do around 2004 or 5 stuff that is now called AI. We didn't call it AI then. We just said we are working on an algorithm. But some of the stuff we did, and it took us 3 years to do that. It is non-trivial, some of these problems. Okay, or let's say Jeevan Sathi. Again, it's a two-way match problem. You don't just want to find a girl you like; the girl has to like you back, right? So we're going to show you girls you like who will also like you, okay, or whose parents might like you, because a lot of this matrimonial sites make arranged marriages happen, right? And that again is a non-trivial problem. And again, we've invested substantial resources to improve the quality of matches, because when there's a two-way match with serious intent on both sides, you are more likely to get an outcome which results in a wedding taking place, and therefore your site is successful. Right? Likewise, let's say 99 acres, we've done stuff around price estimator. Now, in real estate, pricing is very often opaque. Pricing is negotiated. There could be a lot of padding there. You don't know what's the kind of padding as a buyer. Look, there's also this whole thing of in secondary sales, secondary property purchase in India, there's this part cash, part check, right? So pricing is a challenge for a buyer. What's the right price? Am I getting the right deal? There again, we've used past data, historical data to come out with a pricing estimator tool, which is informed by intelligence about past deals, past data. That will give you a slightly better idea. I won't say it's perfect. Slightly better idea of what the range of fair price is right now, or correct market prices. So we've been doing this. Now the truth is that when you're launching as a startup, you very often don't recognize the importance of this. You also very often don't have enough data about past users of your own site to build the right algorithm to train train the algorithm, right, to do a better job, and that comes over time. But I do think startups will be well advised to, right from the beginning, understand and appreciate the importance of using data to build smarter products.
And Sanjeev, do you think that typically, let's say companies such as yours the portfolio companies that you gave examples, because of the critical mass of data, it'll always be in similar categories, hard for companies to compete, because at the end of the day, you need data to create that intelligence.
So look, I would never say never. Innovation happens. There may be a particular use case for which somebody may produce a UI or a product or a work or a workflow or a navigation which perhaps might work better. At the end of the day, job sites had existed for 6-7 years before LinkedIn came around, right? And those job sites had plenty of data, right? But LinkedIn introduced a new concept called professional networking. Job sites are never about networking. Job sites, you put your CV and you say, hey, I want to keep it confidential. Only I and the recruiter must know. So you'll never network on a job site. So innovation is possible. It's not as if, look, if you use your data well and you got enough past data, you can build a decent fort, you can build a decent moat. But disruptive innovation is always possible.
Great. So Sanjeev, just switching the topic in relation to this. So at what, you touched upon it, but typically at what stage of life cycle should a startup invest in data? And I'm not just saying machine learning and data science, but I'm just saying the right way of storing data, analyzing data. I'm not just talking about traffic analytics.
The right way of storing data should start from day one.
Right.
The right way to analyze data, you've got to have a good appreciation of what you're going to be doing 2 years from now, 3 years from now with your data in order to collect and store it in the right format. Right? If you don't even collect the data, you will never be able to analyze the data. And if you don't know what analysis you will want 2 years later, you won't collect that data today. So this appreciation must come early. It must come even if you're a new category, even if don't have traction right now, the frameworks have to be in place upfront and early. So in that sense, look, we at Infoedge had an easier job. We were the first job site in India. Nobody knew the importance of data. We did not either. So we just did it, right? And we did not bother too much about data. The appreciation about the importance of data came around 2001, 2002, 4 years after Naukri was launched, and which is when you began to work on it. Now, today's startups may not have the luxury of 4 years before understanding the data is important, because there's competition. There's enough funding for competition. If you don't do it, somebody else will do it before you. So because the marketplace is a lot more competitive than it was 23 years ago when you launched Naukri, I think the good bit is the marketplace is larger, good bit is talent is available, good bit is capital is available. The not so good bit is there's competition. Much more than it was 23 years ago. So you got to get stuff right the first time.
Got it. Interesting. And what is your view, Sanjeev? Because startups, when they form teams, typically somebody would be from a product management background, somebody would be from a tech and sales background, and not necessarily data background. And as you know, data engineers, data scientists are very, very difficult to get. So what would be your suggestion to the whole ecosystem in terms of learn and upskill internally?
I think you got to do a bit of both. I mean, some amount of learning and upskilling. But, so let me put it this way. Typically, the founding teams of startups are very often friends, right? They either lived in the same neighborhood or went to the same school or same college or same business school or same, whatever. They were colleagues. So essentially, you found a company, usually with 1 or 2 or 3 people that you know or have worked with. Most often, you don't do a rational analysis. Hey, you're a great buddy of mine. I really want to work with you, but you and I have the same skills, so you're out. I have not heard of any startup do that. It's about chemistry. It's about rapport. It's about giving each other moral support early on. It's about boosting morale. Hey, let's do this together. We are comrades in arms, right? So very often, certain essential skills get left out because you just didn't know a guy who you could trust and who trusted you when the chemistry was right, who was great at tech. or you're great at tech and you're that guy, but you couldn't find a good sales guy because you only know other engineers, right? Because you were in an engineering job, right? And therefore, founding teams very often have holes in them. Now, we, for instance, when we started, we didn't have a full-time tech person at the top table. As simple as that. Which is why I would say we underinvested in tech for the first 5 or 6 years. Right? We did do tech in-house, but there was somebody at the top table. If it's not at the top table, very often that voice doesn't get heard. Now, increasingly, as data becomes important, I see that the need for data science, for data, an appreciation of data to be there at the top table. But I don't see too many startups, and we invest in startups. We meet about couple of hundred a month, right? I've yet to meet anybody, unless it's a pure data science startup, which is very often B2B, right? I don't see anybody with data expertise at the top table. It's cuddling it, We'll deal with it as and when. But I would say that you need data expertise at the top table, at least data appreciation, understanding at the top table. And yes, an entrepreneur has to have many skills. Founder has to have many skills. It is to sell, to build, to brief a tech team, to work with a tech team, to understand the output. To work in ops. I mean, you gotta, be 50 people at one time. Data is one of them.
Got it. No, absolutely, totally agree with you. And Sanjeev, you're involved with a lot of education ecosystems and yourself into educational institutes. Do you think we as India Tech are investing enough in education and skilling with respect to data? And do you think also the
So it's beginning. So it's beginning, right? It's not there yet. But look, so India's education systems, education institutions, very often are not the first of the block to respond to any trend. And if you are, a public university or a public college or a government school, you usually are not the first of the block. A simple example. Organizations like NIIT and AppTech came up in the early 80s. And why did they come up? They came up because they said, hey, we'll teach you computers. Now, the public felt the need to learn computers. It's a skill of the future. And when they said teach you computers, it meant, we'll teach you word processing and spreadsheet and, not and how to make presentations. Right? It was not, a lot of it was not rocket science. A lot of it was not programming. Some of it was, but a lot of it was not programming. Right? And they got customers, which means people felt the need that this is a skill of the future. Right? It took, I think, 7 or 8 or 10 years for public universities to, I'm not talking about the engineering colleges, I'm talking about the public university, Delhi University and others, to actually incorporate this sort of stuff in the curricula. And even then, it was not given to students of all courses. There was a course launched called BSc Computer Science at Delhi University, which had some of this. But you do that course. It was not taught across the board to all of the economics guy, the BCom guy was not taught it. Right, where the large numbers are. BCom is one of the largest courses, right? They had to go out to learn it. So, look, the market will respond. Public universities may or may not be the first to respond.
Got it. Interesting. In terms of, build versus borrow, what would you recommend, right? For example, today's date, we can store our large data in Redshift on AWS versus we can decide to build ourselves, or we could also borrow libraries. I'm not talking algos, but core libraries, or actually produce on our own. So build versus borrow. What's your view, right? In specifically in tech.
So we have a history of building rather than borrowing because we've been around for 23 years. And because when we began in 97, there was no place to borrow from. You had to build. None of this stuff existed. So some of that mindset continues. But if I were to be a new company today, I would say, look, all your platforms, why are you reinventing the wheel? Why do you want to do that? Just build your app, build your intelligence, gather your data, do your algorithms. The more customized algorithms are, and the more relevant they are to your customer, to the user, the more defensible your offering is. So, for example, our job search result ranking algorithm is unique. It's written by us. Our resume search result ranking algorithm is unique, written by us. Right? So I'll give you an example of the resume search algorithm. I won't tell you how we did it, but that's a secret. But so Naukri has got some 66 million resumes growing at 17,000 a day. Right? So recruiters come who are paid clients of ours and they search this database to find candidates they can contact for vacancies that they have. So there's a reasonably structured plus open-ended field plus keywords, whatever. It's a reasonably powerful search functionality there, right? So let's say you search for Java, C++, 3 to 5 years, BTech Computer Science, located in Bangalore. You think it's a narrow search, right? But actually it might throw out 5 lakh CVs because the database is so large, right? Now, when a recruiter looks at those CVs, he applies judgment which he could not articulate in the search form. Right? And therefore, it's 50 CVs to a page. So in the first page, you could find 3 CVs relevant. Second, none. Third, 2. Fourth, 1. So yes, we have to go through 30, 40, 50 pages to accumulate maybe 30 CVs that are relevant. Now, it's very good and useful, but imagine if those 30 CVs could have been bunched on the top or on page 1. You find them all together up front. But to do that, you have to be able to know what's in his head. What are the unarticulated filters and criteria he will use to shortlist this CV or not that? Again, it took us 3 years to do this, a non-trivial problem to solve. But when we did it, it worked like magic. Now, roughly 24% of our revenue comes from headhunters, recruitment firms. Now, typically a client will brief 3 or 4 different recruitment firms for the same job. Right? And if the same CV comes from more than one recruitment firm, it will be credited to the firm that submitted it first. So if you become adept, or your tool is so good that it gives the best CVs on top, you save precious 20 minutes, which is the difference between you billing 5 lakh rupees or billing nothing, because the other guy didn't give it before you. So if you actually do a search of the resume of the Naukri resume database for recruiters, you will find 3 out of 5 recruiters will put in key skills. I can search the Naukri resume database very fast. It's our key skill, because that gets him his next job, because that enables him to build more. And that is the utility of this algorithm, where we can get to the right CVs faster, because we know how to capture the unarticulated criteria in the recruiter's head.
That's super impressive.
But it was years to do. But it was a game changer.
And how much time did it take for you all to develop this, or is this a constant iteration?
No, it's constant. It's constant iteration. But the first version took 3 years to develop, because we were chasing a mirage. This is before we understood the term data analytics. Before we understood what AI was, and what we did not use those words. We just say karna hai. In hindsight now, how much data analytics was?
Very interesting. So Sanjeev, before I open to the house for a few questions, just my last question to you. Which is the startup in the Indian ecosystem or startups that you're most impressed with in terms of use of data? We talk about B2C.
Well, use of data. Well, I said, let me broaden. Which is I'm impressed with.
Hmm.
I'm impressed with Zero Hub, and I'm impressed with Zoho. You know why? Because they did it without raising any money from outside. They did it on customer money, which means their value prop was bang on. They knew the customer inside out. They built a product. Customer began to pay, and they built a company on that. Now, do they use data? I'm sure they do. I have not delved into how specifically they use data. They do it. If I look at companies in our portfolio where I have some more knowledge, I would say, Policy Bazaar has today, because of its data, developed the ability to price risk when issuing an insurance policy in a much more granular manner than anybody else in this country. Which means when they share that intelligence with their insurance partners, those insurance firms can create products that are priced right for that level of risk, because they can measure risk better in a more granular manner.
Sure thing.
And that is significant. And that is a huge moat because they've got so much data. Right? Zomato, right? Who will order what, when, at what price point? Now, this impacts restaurants' economics. This impacts the routing. You want to shave 5 minutes of delivery time. You want to enable the rider to make 14 deliveries a day instead of 10. So he makes more money. So your ecosystem is more stable. Now, intelligent user data is really important, all these. Now, other startups, I'm sure they're doing enough of them are doing a good job. I'm sure Flipkart, for example, must have done a great job. Right? Likewise, most of the startups would have done a great job. It's just I don't know enough because I've not looked under the hood.
No, but I think these were great examples, and very interesting. Both the favorite startups there, they start with Z. Very interesting. and one of your portfolio companies also starts with Z. So Z is a very
that is.
Sanjeev, that was really excellent. I'm sure great for the audience, especially for me also. There are lots of great insights in such a short span. I'm going to now leave it open for some questions. I think we have time for about two quick questions, which I can just look into if there is any which come in. One of the questions is, what are the key challenges faced by the Indian innovation ecosystem?
Okay. Look, I think first of all, you need enough capital early on to be able to take risks on innovations that may not work. Right? It's like R&D; it might fail. It's like it took us 3 years to build the resume algorithm. It could have taken 5, could have taken 7. We don't know. So when we began it, we were kind of uncertain. Should we do it, not do it? Okay, if do it, how long? We had no clue. We just said, guys, work on it. Work on it after 5:30, work on weekends. I said, these 2 guys can work on it for 3 months. And we were sort of working out of faith. We were able to do that because we were profitable at that stage. Right? But for a brand new startup now, today we have a analytics team in Naukri in excess of 20 or 30 people. They're expensive. Many are PhDs. I don't see a startup being able to do a lot of that unless it's really very well funded. Or the guys at the top table themselves are capable of doing it. Which is why I talked about, having somebody with data analytics at the top table. Right? The other thing is, look, fundamentally, what happens is that you need a large domestic market in order for VC firms to invest large amounts of money to back startups. Because if there's a large market, they can see money being made by that company in large enough amounts that they'll get a return on the capital. And there's a big reason why the US is the hub and mecca of early stage funding, startups, innovation, all of that. It's because venture capitalists in Silicon Valley know that if they invest in a startup here, the US market is so large that if the company does a good job, it'll be able to earn revenues and profits commensurate with the amount of money that went in and at the valuation it went in at. Right? So you cannot divorce, funding in a startup ecosystem from size of domestic market. There have been countries like Israel which have sort of looked at overseas markets right from get-go. And India is now beginning to develop that with B2B SaaS companies. But there's a long way yet. You still need, at least in consumer businesses, a large domestic market, or large enough to justify the money you raised.
Great. I'll take the last question. There's a question. What are 3 sectors of focus for data innovation in India? Top 3 sectors for data innovation.
Fintech is a lot. I mean, you're in it, Ashish, you know. Right? I mean, fintech, I think health tech will be. Right? And the rest will be, e-commerce, I'd say.
Great. That's good and specific. I totally agree on the fintech piece for sure.
Fintech will be number one for a while on data innovation.
Oh, absolutely. Sanjeev, this was an amazing session. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much. Yeah.
And I hope it was valuable for the listeners. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sanjeev sir. Thank you, Ashish, for this amazing session.
Bye.
Bye. Before ending the session, one last time, I would like to take the opportunity to quickly thank our partners, our diamond partner, Google, our platinum partners, InMobi and Facebook, our digital growth partner, Microsoft, omni-channel partner, our omni-channel partner, Zendesk, our customer experience partner, Adobe, our customer engagement partner, Infobip, our gold partners, Freshworks and Tata Teleservices, our silver partners, Reverie Language Technologies and Philoze, our bronze partners, CrediWatch and InShots, our design partner, Wisave, our media partner, Financial Express, and our PR partner, We Communicate. So with that, we come to the end of our sessions at India Digital Summit. However, we still have the most awaited evening left, which is the evening of IMAI's flagship awards, the 11th edition of India Digital Awards taking place. So for the same, I would request everyone to please stay back on this platform as we will be starting with the award ceremony from 6 p.m. onwards. Meanwhile, please do visit our virtual booth space for many exciting offerings from the exhibitors. Thank you so much.